In the last episode, I was talking a lot about open systems, well, open situations and closed situations. And that's a convenient enough way of talking about it. But we could still ask, well, what exactly is an open situation? What exactly is it? And in a kind of a way, it's self-explanatory. But in another way, it's a very alien notion to us, the notion that there could be an open situation. Because it's like an alien concept because we never find ourselves in an open situation. Very, very rarely do we find ourselves in that situation. Even though, as I was saying in the last installment, the open situation is the only situation there is. So I thought I'd just start off by trying to maybe make more sense of what an open situation is, what a closed situation is. So a closed situation, starting off that way around, which is easier, is where we're living within a structure. There's a structure there. A system or a structure, whichever way you want to put it. There are laws, there are rules, there's do's and don'ts, there's ways to do things, ways to be. So when we talk about living within a structure, you could think about maybe working in a big office block. That's obviously a structure, a big, huge office block, loads of offices. And also, there's the idea of working within a big corporation or an organization. And that's a system and a structure as well, because it's also made up of rules, just like the concrete office block is. When we work within an organization, we're working within a structure. Of course, that's hardly any news. But that's only just trying to get the feel of it. The thing is that even if I'm walking through a field on a beautiful summer's day, and there's blue sky and lots of skies above me and there's nothing hemming me in, that seems like an open situation. There's butterflies fluttering around, there's birds singing, etc., etc. You could say, well, that's a nice open situation. But it isn't, it probably isn't, because the structure is in our heads. And almost every human being you will meet has a structure in their heads, inside their heads. And I don't mean the brain. That's another structure. It's kind of jelly-like, gelatinous, kind of gooey kind of structure. But that's a structure as well. But I'm not talking about that structure. I'm talking about our beliefs or our way of understanding the world. Because our way of understanding the world is always a structure, always a system. And to be talking about a belief doesn't necessarily mean a religious belief, even though a religious belief is a very good example of a belief. So if I have a strong religious belief, I'm definitely living within a structure. I'm definitely not in an open situation. An open situation is where I don't believe anything, where I don't have any opinions, where I don't have any way of seeing the world. But it's not just beliefs in a religious sense. We all have beliefs. We're all believers. And that's not a good thing. It's not really a good thing to be a believer, because it just means that you've hit upon this kind of notion of what the world is and what life is, and you're sticking at it, and anything else is none of your business and you don't want to know anyway. So there's no growth in it. So it sounds like it's a funny thing to say. That's not a good thing, because that seems like an arbitrary moral judgment. But so I should really say it's not a good thing in relation to growth, because we can't grow within a system. The system does not permit growth. Any system or systems do not permit growth. They permit adaptation, i.e. approximating the system better. They permit developing along the lines that are encouraged by the system. But all of that is the system. So very clearly, adaptation to the system is not going beyond the system. Developing in the way that the system regards or assumes to be a good and proper way of developing is also not transcending the system. It's also the system. So we're not really going anywhere. It's just the system and that's it. So almost everyone has a system. And that system is given to us. We receive it from our parents and everyone else, of course. And the bits that we don't, we kind of make up ourselves maybe, but the main skeleton of it is provided by our social milieu. The idea of not having a way of seeing the world or not having a belief about what the world is, it's easy enough to talk about not having an opinion, people say, I have no opinion, I'm sitting on the fence. But nobody does. Everyone has an opinion about what the world is. Everyone has a theory. You don't have to be a theoretical scientist to have a theory about what the world is. You've got one anyway. So that's a structure, and that's what it means to be living in a structure. The structure is created by our thoughts, so the structure is the structure of thought. Things are what we think they are. You are who I think you are. I am who I think I am. Nothing is ever not what we think it is. Therefore, we could say thought is king. Thought is the big boss, the autocrat, the dictator, because thought says what things are. And that's okay, because that's what we want out of thought. It's a machine for saying what things are, a machine for defining things, identifying things, putting things together in a certain way, organizing things. And that's what thought's supposed to do. And as long as we're creating a world of our thoughts, we're living within a structure. Living within a structure without, at this point in time, going into all the ramifications of how that may adversely affect our mental health. And I could definitely go on at huge length, sitting here for hours and hours and hours, talking about all the ways in which living in a structure adversely affects our mental health. Just to start off with, there is no mental health, because health means wholeness. There cannot be wholeness within a structure, because structure is the antithesis of wholeness. Structure is where you separate things and keep them apart with boundaries, and this is this and that is that and all the rest of it. This can't go there, but that does have to go over there, and that other yoke, it goes in the thing there like that. It's like having a very well organized desk and the paper clips go one place and pencils go another. So that's a system, that's a structure, and it's got nothing to do with wholeness, because it's to do with parts or fragments or categories. In wholeness, there are no parts. There are no categories. There's no fragmentation. Because wholeness is just wholeness, and you can't say anything about it in that. So that gives us a way of looking at what the open situation is. And it's wholeness with no demarcations, no fragments, no lines drawn in the sand. Now, in a way, it's kind of like you can talk about open systems and closed systems, because that is that's a terminology we are familiar with. Only we can't, because the open system isn't a system. There's no such thing as an open system. There's either openness or there's a system. You can't have it. Even though you can read in textbooks about open systems, you can't actually ever have a system that's open, because then you've got the system and you've got openness. And the openness infinitely relativizes the system, so the system isn't really a structure at all. There's no absolutes in it. It's like it's made up of boundaries which are actually not there, and we know they're not there, so that means it's not a system. It doesn't train us to think in a particular way. So it is possible to go on and on about all the disadvantages or the adverse effects on our mental health that come from being adapted to a structure or living within a structure, living in a closed world. But rather than going down that road at the moment, I'd just like to note that it is disadvantageous. And because it's disadvantageous, the clue isn't to jiggle around with that structure or get new structures or systems, or to kind of fiddle around with the code and recode everything or recalibrate everything, or have a formula, do this and then that'll happen and you'll feel better, don't worry. The cure is to bring in openness, relate to openness. In other words, the cure is to lose the integrity of the structure that is containing us. So that's nice and simple. Because openness is always there, and openness is always trying to break in a way. I don't mean it's to everybody wanting to break in, but it's always there, and it's always bigger than our systems. And it's more real than our systems, because it's there anyway. It always will be, and our systems are only there because we say they are, or we say that they shall be. So going back to the idea of the office block, an office block is a system, a structure, I can walk into it. But the office block doesn't have to be there. It's only there because we built it. And in the same way, all structures are only there because we build them. Take away the builder and what's left? Which is kind of like something the Buddha said in relation to his seeking of the builder. He's seeking to find out who built the structure, because once you can find the builder, you can make damn sure there's no more structures. That's the kind of idea, really, so that the structure will be no more. Now that's fair enough, as I keep saying, that's simple enough, but the thing about that is we're identified with the structure. The structure is not only the world, the only world we know, the world we rely on and relate to, it's also us within the world. The world is a structure and I'm a structure within it. And actually a threat to the integrity of the structure of the world, as I understand it, is a threat to me. That's why if you insult my belief structure, you're insulting me. I take it real personal. Real personal. Don't go disrespecting my belief. Folk don't like that, as we all know. People can react pretty nastily when you go disrespecting their beliefs. So that's kind of why it isn't as simple as all of that, because we're so very attached to our structure, which is also the same as being attached to who we think we are, to our identity, that any sign of it starting to crack up or give way or fall to pieces is perceived in the most in the worst possible way. It's the last thing we want. We actually say, oh my God, I'm cracking up here. I'm cracking up. I'm having a nervous breakdown. I'm cracking up. living in a nice house and there's cracks coming down the wall and everything, the plaster's falling off from the ceiling and stuff. Everything's cracking up. So that's what we consider to be having a breakdown, where the structure cracks up and we want to plaster it back together again and put some more wallpaper on and paint it again and get it back together again. So that's what most of what passes for mental health comes down to, trying to patch up the structure. Oh my God, what can we do with the structure? It's fallen to pieces in a big way. And yet this is the very thing which is bringing health to us, wholeness to us. It's the only thing that can bring health to us or wholeness to us. Then you have the other side of the coin, because you have people that would see that. So you get people like Rumi saying the cure for the pain is in the pain, or you get like your man saying there's a crack in everything and the crack's where the light gets in. That's another example of this reversed way of thinking. It's where normally we think the crack is the bad thing and we have to kind of get rid of the crack and seal it. And your man is saying, I'm trying to remember his name, but I'm no good at remembering things. And your man is saying, but no, that's where the light's getting in. It's the only place the crack is the thing. That's where the light's getting in. And in the same way, Rumi is saying the pain is where the light is getting in. So that's the antithetical viewpoint as seeing the cracking up process, the process by which reality can reach in and rescue us from the dreadful prisons that we've created for ourselves out of our need for security. But the whole problem with this is, as I've said, that we're so identified with the structure that we will fight that process every inch of the way. Now, the process will win in the end, because structures are only provisional. They're not meant to be there forever. They can't be there forever, and they won't be there forever. So the cracking up process will win in the end, but we can resist it, and we do resist it, and we'll keep on resisting it and resisting it. And the whole process is very painful and very drawn out. And maybe if we go and do loads of fixing type therapy, maybe we can delay that process a bit and hang on to the structure a bit more. So that's a possibility as well. That's the best we can hope for, is to delay it, play a delaying game. But of course, I mean, that's me being sarcastic, because who wants to play a long, drawn-out delaying game? But if we move away from the fixing therapies, we've got the other side of things, which is where we see the cracking up process, the disintegration of the structure, as a good, wholesome thing. That's where our mental health is. So supposing we want to go for that antithetical paradigm, what do we do then? Well, that's interesting, because, well, straight away it's interesting because there's nothing we can deliberately do to simulate the process of cracking up. It has to happen by itself, otherwise it's just the simulation of cracking up. And the simulation of cracking up is not a cracking up of the simulation, but another level of the simulation, in which the new level of simulation cracks up, simulates the cracking up of the other level. Essentially, there's no purposeful way to free ourselves or to expand our horizons, because our purposes are a symptom of our narrowness, of our closed-mindedness. But there are ways, which aren't fixing ways, but they are ways. One is meditation, where we gradually get better at dropping this need we have to create and maintain structures. And that's why mindfulness works. Even though I think we don't really know what we're doing with mindfulness, in the sense that we're playing with fire, because even though we don't want to be feeling good, we don't actually want to dissolve all the structures that we live within. But we don't know that's what we're doing. If we carried on with the meditation, we would find out that that is what we're doing. And then we'd have to kind of come to this point where we think, is this really what I want, or is it not what I want? Is this going too far? Did I want to fix my toys, or did I want to go out into the real world, leave my toys behind. And another way, which is also experiencing a real resurgence at the moment, is psychedelic drugs like psilocybin or mushrooms. The way psychedelic drugs work is by dissolving structures. It's as simple as that. If you take a really fair-sized dose of LSD, for example, all of those structures that you're so used to and that you didn't even know to be there, you hadn't a clue they were there. You only know they're there when they start to get dissolved, and then you think, oh shit. So a fair amount of LSD, a decent amount of LSD, will get rid of every single structure. You'll be left in a completely open situation. Only temporarily, but that's what it does. But I will maybe save talking about the psychedelic approach to therapy to the next installment. So thanks for watching.